The glass shattered against the kitchen tile. "Stop lying, Nicole," my father roared, his face red, the veins in his neck bulging. Brooke stood behind him, trembling, mascara streaking down her cheeks in perfect black rivers. "I trusted you," she whispered, her voice breaking. "You had access to the account." My mother held the printed bank statement like it was evidence in a murder trial. $18,000 doesn't just disappear, she said coldly. The air felt thin in that kitchen. The smell of burnt pot roast filled the room. My childhood kitchen with its yellow walls, family photos covering the refrigerator, and the clock shaped like a sunflower suddenly felt like a courtroom. I hadn't even processed the number before my father said it. "You stole from your sister." The accusation didn't land quietly. Detonated. And before I could open my mouth to speak, before I could defend myself or ask questions or demand to see the evidence, they had already chosen her. They had already decided I was guilty. "Pack a bag." That's what my father said next. Not "let's talk about this." Not "explain what happened." Not "are you sure?" A bag. 3 words that ended my place in this family. Brooke sobbed into my mother's shoulder like she was the victim of something unspeakable. My mother stroked her hair and whispered comforting words. I stood there, frozen, trying to understand what was happening. Through the chaos and shouting, I noticed something strange. The bank statement my mother was holding showed 2 authorization confirmations at the bottom. 2 separate approvals for the withdrawal. And yet, I was the only one being thrown out of the house. I was the only one being accused. I walked upstairs to my childhood bedroom. They didn't follow me. Nobody came to check on me. Nobody asked for my side of the story. I packed a small bag with clothes and essentials. 45 minutes later, I walked out of the house I grew up in. They didn't say goodbye. They believed her. They always believed her. My name is Nicole Brown and I'm 31 years old. For my entire life, I had been the responsible daughter. The reliable one. The problem solver. The daughter who stayed close to home in Ohio while my college friends moved to Chicago and Denver for better opportunities. I helped my parents refinance their mortgage 5 years ago when my father's auto repair shop hit financial trouble. I reviewed their paperwork carefully. I helped them create a realistic budget. I even set up the savings account that Brooke now claimed I had drained. Brooke was 27 years old, 4 years younger than me. Sensitive, my mother always said. Emotionally fragile. That was the exact phrase my mother used whenever Brooke overdrafted her checking account again or maxed out another credit card on clothes and restaurants. And that night in our kitchen, surrounded by broken glass and broken trust, I realized something important. This wasn't really about money. This was about who they were willing to lose. And they had made their choice. I didn't scream or cry that night. I didn't beg them to believe me. I stayed at my friend Kayla's apartment, sleeping on her pull-out couch. The next morning I called the bank. I work in corporate risk assessment for a regional insurance company. Investigating suspicious transactions is literally part of my job. The customer service representative pulled up the account details. The withdrawal was approved using 2-factor authentication, she explained. What does that mean exactly? It means 2 separate devices confirmed the transaction. Both had to approve it. My stomach tightened. Can you tell me which devices? She read off the information. One device was registered to my phone number. The other was registered to Brooke's phone number. Both devices had approved the $18,000 withdrawal. I wrote down everything she said word for word. My hand was shaking slightly. "Thank you," I said quietly. And I said nothing to my parents. Not yet. I needed more information first. Brooke had always been protected in our family. When she crashed her first car at 19, my parents blamed the wet roads and poor visibility. When she dropped out of nursing school after 1 semester, they blamed the stress and the difficult professors. When she maxed out 3 credit cards by age 24, they blamed predatory lending practices. Every mistake had an excuse. Every failure had someone else to blame. Meanwhile, when I graduated from college debt-free after working 2 jobs, they said, "That's just Nicole. She's always been strong. Strong meant I didn't need support. Strong meant I could handle things on my own. Strong meant they didn't have to worry about me. Strong meant silent. I had accepted this dynamic for years without questioning it. I was the daughter who didn't need rescuing. Brooke was the daughter who always did. But this was different. This wasn't just favoritism anymore. This was something else entirely. And I was going to find out exactly what. I requested deeper transaction logs from the bank. Because I work in risk assessment, I knew exactly what questions to ask and which records to request. The bank compliance officer was helpful once I explained the situation. The detailed logs arrived 3 days later. I spread them across Kayla's kitchen table and studied every line. The $18,000 withdrawal had originated from Brooke's IP address, 2:14 in the morning, from her apartment across town. But the second authentication, the one that made the transaction possible, had come from saved credentials on my mother's laptop. Someone had accessed my stored login information. Someone had used my saved account access without my knowledge or permission. I sat back in the chair and stared at the ceiling. This wasn't just a lie. This wasn't just Brooke making a mistake and blaming me. This was planned, calculated, and possibly my parents knew about it. I started digging deeper into family finances. 3 months before the accusation, my parents had refinanced their house. I had been listed as a partial guarantor years ago when their credit scores dropped during my dad's business troubles. The refinance required digital acknowledgement from all guarantors. I found the email in my archive. I had never opened it, but someone had responded using my email address. The timestamp matched the same evening that Brooke made her withdrawal. My mother's email address had confirmed the approval under my name. The electronic signature looked like mine. But I had never signed anything. I sat back in my chair, feeling cold despite the warm apartment. They hadn't just believed Brooke's lie. They had actively participated in it. They had used my information without permission. They had covered for her. And then they had thrown me out when the consequences came. This was so much worse than I had imagined. I didn't confront them immediately. I didn't call and demand explanations. Instead, I hired a lawyer quietly. A good one who specialized in financial fraud and family law. Her name was Patricia Chen, and she came highly recommended. I showed her everything. The transaction logs, the IP addresses, the unauthorized use of my email and electronic signature. She studied the documents carefully. "This is mortgage fraud," she said flatly. "And identity theft. You could press charges." "I don't want to press charges," I replied. "I just want to protect myself. Then we remove you from all future liability immediately." The process took 3 months. Legal paperwork removing me as guarantor. Formal notifications to the bank. Documentation of the unauthorized use of my credentials. My parents never noticed. They were too focused on their own problems. And I was invisible to them now anyway. Christmas arrived. My parents posted matching family photos on social media. Everyone wearing coordinating pajamas. Brooke smiling brightly, her arm around a man I didn't recognize. The caption read, "Family is everything." I wasn't in the photos. Nobody mentioned my absence. My phone stayed silent all through the holidays. No calls, no text, no apologies. Then in early January, a foreclosure notice was automatically forwarded to my old guarantor email address. I stared at the screen. My parents were 3 mortgage payments behind. The bank was beginning foreclosure proceedings. I forwarded the notice to my lawyer. "You're officially removed from all liability," she confirmed. "This isn't your problem anymore." But I kept reading the notice anyway, trying to understand how they had fallen behind so quickly. The answer was in the adjustable interest rate. The refinance my parents had done, the one where someone had forged my signature, had been an adjustable rate mortgage. At the time the rates were low. It seemed like a good deal. But rates had skyrocketed over the past year. Their monthly payment had increased by nearly $1,200. My father's auto repair shop wasn't recovering from its earlier problems. Business was still slow. They were drowning in debt. And they still hadn't called me. Not to apologize. Not to explain. Not even to ask for help. I was completely erased from their lives. As if I had never existed. As if 31 years of being the responsible daughter meant nothing. I closed my laptop and went to bed. And I slept better than I had in months. Because their crisis wasn't mine anymore. I had protected myself. And that was enough. Through mutual friends, I learned more about Brooke's situation. She had developed a gambling problem. Online sports betting. It had started small, apparently. A few dollars here and there on football games. Then it escalated. Bigger bets. Riskier wagers. She had maxed out her credit cards again. The $18,000 from the savings account had gone straight to paying gambling debts. Her fiancé, a man named Warren, didn't know about any of it. He thought Brooke was financially responsible. He thought she was saving for their wedding. He had no idea what was coming. I heard all of this through Kayla, who heard it from her sister, who worked with Brooke's best friend. Small-town gossip networks are remarkably efficient. I didn't feel satisfaction hearing about Brooke's problems. I didn't feel vindicated. I just felt distant. Like I was hearing about a stranger's life. Which, in a way, I was. She wasn't my sister anymore. Not really. 1 year after they threw me out, the knock came. Tuesday evening. 7:30. I was making dinner in my condo when I heard it. I looked through the peephole. My parents stood in the hallway. My father looked thinner than I remembered. My mother's hair had gone grayer. They both looked tired. Worn down. My mother clutched a manila folder against her chest. I took a deep breath and opened the door. "Nicole," my mother said softly. "We need to talk." I stepped aside to let them in. They entered my condo awkwardly, looking around at my furniture and decorations like they were visiting a stranger's home. Which they were really. This was my space. They had never been here before. "Nice place," my father said quietly. I didn't respond. I just waited. Finally my mother spoke. "We need your signature, Nicole." She held out the folder. "For what?" "The house is entering foreclosure. The bank needs all original guarantors to approve a restructuring agreement. They assumed I was still tied to their mortgage. They had no idea I had removed myself months ago." My father avoided eye contact. He stared at my kitchen counter instead. "It's just paperwork," he said. "Simple approval so we can negotiate new terms with the bank. Just paperwork." The same words he had used a year ago when explaining the refinance. The refinance where someone had forged my signature. I crossed my arms. What kind of restructuring? My mother opened the folder and pulled out documents. "The bank is willing to freeze the foreclosure if all guarantors agree to new payment terms. We just need everyone to sign." She held out a pen. Like this was simple. Like I would just sign without questions. I looked at the documents but didn't reach for them. "Have you tried other options?" Yes. My father's jaw tightened. We wouldn't be here if we had other options. The first honest thing he had said. I studied their faces. Neither of them looked apologetic. Neither of them had mentioned last year. Neither of them had said the words, "I'm sorry." They just wanted my signature. Like nothing had happened. "We forgave you," my mother said gently. And blinked. "What?" "We forgave you for what happened last year. Water under the bridge now. We're family." Forgave me. For something I didn't do. For something Brooke had done and blamed on me. For something they had helped cover up. They were standing in my home, asking for my help, and they thought they had forgiven me. I felt something cold settle in my chest. "You never apologized," I said quietly. My mother looked confused. "For what?" "For accusing me. For throwing me out. For believing Brooke without even asking for my side of the story." My father shifted uncomfortably. "Let's not rehash old conflicts," he said. "We're here about the house." Old conflicts. That's what he called destroying my relationship with my family. Old conflicts. I looked at them both and realized something. They genuinely believed they had done nothing wrong. They had rewritten the story in their minds. Made themselves the victims. Made me the problem child who had been graciously forgiven. 20 minutes after they arrived, there was another knock. I knew who it would be before I opened the door. Brooke stepped inside my condo. Her engagement ring was gone. Her mascara was smudged, just like it had been a year ago in the kitchen. But this time she wasn't crying for effect. She looked genuinely scared. "Nicole," she said quietly. I didn't respond. She looked at our parents, then back at me. "Warren found out about the gambling," she said. "He moved out last week." My mother made a sympathetic sound and moved toward Brooke. But Brooke held up her hand. "I need to tell her the truth." My father went rigid. "Brooke, don't." "She deserves to know," Brooke interrupted. She looked at me directly. "I took the money. I had a gambling problem. I was in debt to some really bad people. I panicked." Her voice was shaking. "Mom and Dad knew. They helped me cover it up. We used your saved credentials to authorize the withdrawal. Then I blamed you so they wouldn't have to face what I'd done." The room went completely silent. I walked to my office and returned with my own folder. I had been carrying this evidence for a year. Waiting. I spread the documents across my coffee table. Transaction logs showing Brooke's IP address. Device registration records. Timestamps proving I was at a work conference when the withdrawal occurred. Email records showing unauthorized use of my credentials. Documentation of the forged signature on the refinance papers. Everything. My father's hands started trembling. My mother's face went pale. "I've had all of this since 3 days after you kicked me out," I said calmly. Brooke sank onto my couch. "Why didn't you show us?" my mother whispered. "Because you didn't ask. You didn't question. You just chose to believe her." I looked at my father. "You told me to pack a bag without even listening to me." He looked away. "We were protecting Brooke," my mother said weakly. "At my expense," I replied. The truth hung between us. Undeniable now. Written in documents and data. "You knew," I said quietly, looking at my parents. It wasn't a question. My mother's lip quivered. We were trying to protect her. She was in real danger from those people she owed money to. "So you sacrificed me instead." "You've always been stronger," my father said. "You could handle it." I laughed. Actually laughed. The sound was bitter in the quiet room. I could handle being falsely accused of theft. Being thrown out of my home. Losing my entire family. "We thought you'd understand eventually," my mother said. "Understand what?" "That Brooke's problems matter more than my reputation. That protecting her is worth destroying me." Nobody answered. 'Cause there was no good answer. They had made their choice. And now they were living with the consequences. Brooke was crying now. Real tears. Not the performance from last year. "I'm so sorry, Nicole," she said. "I was desperate and scared and I didn't think about what it would do to you." I looked at her. "Did you think about it after? When they kicked me out?" She looked down. "Every day. But you never said anything." "I was afraid." I nodded slowly. "Now you know how I felt." My mother straightened in her chair. "We need to move forward," she said, her voice taking on that practical tone I knew so well. "We need your signature on this restructuring agreement." I looked at the folder still sitting on my coffee table. "I never reported what you did," I said quietly. Their eyes snapped up. The unauthorized use of my credentials. The forged signature. The identity theft. Pause. I could have. Mortgage fraud carries serious criminal penalties. Prison time, actually. Brooke's crying stopped abruptly. My father went very still. "But I didn't report it," I continued. "Instead, I hired a lawyer. And I removed myself from the mortgage 6 months ago." The color drained from my father's face. "What?" "I'm no longer listed as a guarantor. I haven't been for half a year. The bank was legally required to notify you, But apparently they didn't. My mother grabbed the restructuring documents and flipped through them frantically. Her hands were shaking. "You're not listed here," she whispered. "I know. The bank doesn't need my signature," I said calmly. "The foreclosure process is already in motion. You'll need to work directly with them." My mother gripped the edge of my kitchen counter. "You could fix this," she said desperately. "You work in finance. You understand these things. You could talk to the bank, negotiate something." "No," I interrupted. "Nicole, please." "No," I repeated firmly. My father stood up. "After everything we did for you, everything you did for me." Cut him off. "You threw me out. You believed a lie. You used my identity without permission. What exactly did you do for me?" He had no answer. "I raised you," my mother tried. "We gave you a home, an education. And then you took it all away when it was convenient for Brooke." I looked at all three of them. "You made your choice last year. Now you live with it." The silence that followed was absolute. My mother started crying. But I felt nothing. No guilt. No satisfaction. Just empty distance. Brooke finally spoke up. Her voice was small. "I need to tell you everything," she said. She admitted to the gambling, the escalating debts, the threatening calls from loan sharks, the panic that led her to drain the savings account. "I told Mom and Dad I needed help," she said. "They wanted to just give me the money from the savings account. But I suggested we make it look like you had taken it." My mother gasped. "That's not." "Yes, it is, Mom," Brooke interrupted. "I suggested it. I said Nicole was strong enough to handle the accusation, that she'd figure out it was a mistake eventually, that we could smooth it over after the danger passed." She looked at me with red, swollen eyes. "But then you left, and time kept passing, and it got harder to admit the truth." My father was staring at Brooke like he was seeing her clearly for the first time in his life. "You planned this," he said slowly. "The whole thing." Brooke nodded miserably. "I'm so sorry. But apologies don't reverse paperwork. Apologies don't erase a year of exile. Apologies don't rebuild trust." Their home sold at auction 2 months later. I didn't attend, but Kayla drove past and told me about it. 30 years of memories. The house where I grew up. The yellow kitchen. The sunflower clock. All of it gone. Sold to pay debts. Brooke moved into a small rental apartment across town. Warren had officially filed for separation. He wanted nothing to do with her after learning about the gambling and the lies. My father closed his auto repair shop. After 35 years in business, he couldn't keep it running without the house equity he had lost. They moved into a 2-bedroom apartment. Smaller. Cheaper. A new start they never wanted. I heard about all of this through the neighborhood network. Not from them. They never called to update me. We were strangers now. My mother called exactly once more after they lost the house. It was late on a Wednesday night. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Nicole," she said. Her voice was different. Smaller. Broken. "We lost everything." There was no anger left in her voice. No demands. No expectations. Just regret. "I know," I said quietly. "I keep thinking about that night. When we told you to pack a bag. When we didn't even listen to you." She was crying. "I was so focused on protecting Brooke. On fixing her crisis. I didn't think about what we were doing to you." I listened in silence. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I know it's too late. I know saying it now doesn't change anything. But I'm sorry." For the first time in a year, my mother had apologized. And I felt nothing. Not rage. Not triumph. Not even relief. Just distance. A vast, unbridgeable distance between us. "Thank you for calling," I said. And I ended the conversation. That same month I received news at work. I was being promoted to Senior Risk Director. A major advancement. Significant salary increase. My own team to manage. My boss called me into her office to deliver the news personally. "You've shown exceptional analytical skills and judgment," she said, "particularly in protecting the company from potential fraud cases." I thought about the irony. I had protected my company from fraud. But I couldn't protect myself from my own family. Or maybe I had. By gathering evidence. By removing myself legally from their debt. By choosing my own safety over their expectations. I accepted the promotion. The following week, I put a down payment on a small house. 2 bedrooms. Hardwood floors. A backyard with an old oak tree. Everything in my name only. No co-signers. No shared liability. No one to rescue but myself. I moved in on a Saturday. Kayla helped me unpack boxes. We ordered pizza and sat on my new porch as the sun set. "You did it," she said. I learned later that my parents tried to reconcile with Brooke. They wanted to rebuild their relationship. Start over as a family. But Brooke was struggling with her gambling addiction recovery. She was angry at them for enabling her for so long. For never letting her face real consequences. "You made me weak," she told them, according to the neighborhood gossip. They had lost the house trying to protect her. And now they were losing her anyway. The irony wasn't lost on me. They had sacrificed me to save her. And in the end they lost both daughters. One through exile. One through enabling. I didn't feel victorious knowing this. I just felt sad. Sad for what our family could have been. Sad for the trust that could never be rebuilt. Sad for all of us. But I didn't feel responsible. Their choices had led them here. Not mine. I had only protected myself. And that was enough. 2 years after that night in the yellow kitchen, I sat in my own house. My own space. Built on my own terms. I had a successful career. Home I loved. Friends who supported me. A life that was entirely mine. My parents and I exchanged brief holiday cards now. Nothing more. Polite distance. Permanent separation. Brooke had completed a gambling addiction program. She was working retail and slowly paying off her debts. We hadn't spoken since that night in my condo. I didn't hate them. But I didn't forgive them either. Some betrayals are too deep to overcome. Some choices have permanent consequences. They had lost their home trying to protect a lie. I had built mine by protecting the truth. I didn't destroy them. Their choices did. And the signature they thought they needed. It stopped belonging to them the moment they decided I didn't. For the first time in my life, I wasn't the responsible daughter. I wasn't the fixer. I wasn't the one who sacrificed myself for family peace. I was simply free. And that freedom was worth more than any signature.